Hi guys, it's Luetin here, and today we're looking at Defence of Talah Market on Rush. And this is an interesting map and base because of its infantry based nature. It's a very close quarter environment, and there's a lot of things to consider when you're defending. I would also like to point out that I start off this round using suppression as my squad perk, and you'll see why that's relevant later on. I have chosen squad suppression, it's for me, okay, and you'll see what I'm talking about soon. Anyway, so we start off this round, and again, they are hitting us quite quickly, alright? They're attacking towards A and to B. And I've taken a position up here on the left hand side. I'm trying to look over at this balcony, but I'm also trying to be aware of people on the left hand side. Now I was already taking some suppressing fire there, so I hit that guy with a big smoke to prevent him from really seeing what's going on and picking me off. But as you can see, look, they've already flanked right around. Bit of poor weapon control for me there for start. I should point out that this evening that I've played was probably the first time I've played in about 15 days. So you have to bear with a few little moments in this round where I probably am not quite 100%. But as I say, it's good to be back in the game, obviously with Christmas and New Year. I've been away for quite a while, been out of my normal situation. Now I wasn't going straight in on the target here because I didn't want to run in and just get slaughtered. I see one guy going in for the disarm there. I don't try to disarm it. I'm moving around this area, making sure it's clear, making sure he's safe to get the disarm. And I see so often still, it was very funny because Battlefield Friends have done another video and talking about Rush finally, and of course they're going for the classic 2-3 guys trying to disarm the same mcom, which as we know is absolutely infuriating. Now they managed to get the plant there, which is quite surprising considering how many of our team are there, and we can see we've got about 2-3 guys down here at A. So we've got quite a reasonable split defence force at the moment. We've got people covering different positions and generally being aware. I'm moving between the two, being a bit mobile and trying to generally keep my eyes on the whole situation. Now again, the key is you don't really want to push too far up, because as soon as you start pushing far, the tighter you try to grab your grip on the game, it's going to slip through your fingers. And you know, the harder you push up towards the enemy, the more they're probably going to be able to flank you. Oh, I should also say, I just noticed there was a small bit of rubber banding on a couple of these first games that we played, so there's a little bit, tiny bit of that here and there, but it wasn't too bad for the most part. Now you see again that these guys have flanked around us there. I was trying to generally control that, but they'd already got a bit of a hit on me and so on. There's about 3 guys in on this that they've managed to move around, so it's important that our guys can get back here. I was communicating where this guy was, saying he's opposite the BM in that building there. And trying to look at the minimap as we go between these different positions. Now you can see there were people calling it out, they already disarmed it. I was very aware of the fact that, here we go, there's the potential that they're going to be pushing in on A. This often happens, and defenders, you should be aware of this, that if a base, like for example the BM gets armed, whilst it's being armed, attackers know that this is a good time to go for the other mcom, because they know that defenders are probably going to be preoccupied with trying to defuse the other one. So as defenders, you have to be aware of that. Don't just assume that B, you know, of course it's important that if an mcom is armed, it needs to be defused. That's obvious, right? It has to be defused. But you also need to try and keep your head straight, and you need to try and stay in control of the game. And you know, to stay in control of the game, it basically means you might have to sit in a quiet area. And you can see right here that we have got some guys going for this mcom. So you need to, you know, you need to just try and be patient. And if an area is quiet, you need to try and stay around that area, because chances are, even if they all get killed at the other mcom, they're going to then use that opportunity. They're going to go, right, well, B didn't work, so we're going to hit A hard now. And that's generally what can happen. It'll flick between the two. Obviously, you're having a double attack at the same time. They're going for 2, and you need to divide your forces accordingly. You need to look at what's going on. But prioritization, as we know, is always a really important thing as well. You have to prioritize and look, okay, how many people are at B? How many people are at A? If there's 2 to 3 of your guys on one mcom and they're sort of generally dealing with it, keep it in mind, but try and, you know, put the pressure where it's necessary. And again, we don't always need to engage these guys. They're sitting right back here up on that hill, and sure, we can fire a bit of suppressive fire their way, but you know, don't make it a priority to always go for these people that are engaging at long range. Because as I often say to my guys, when I'm in a round and people call it out and they say, oh, there's a sniper up on the hill, blah, 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 and I always say, well, how much of a threat is he? You know, is he really causing us a big problem, or is he just picking off a few people here and there? Because, to be honest, a lot of the time snipers and long-range people that are sitting back, they're not really a big threat unless they're covering something like an mcom. Now that nest that's straight ahead of me there on the right, that covers the AMCOM, that is a dangerous one that's worth taking out. But the one towards B, where those guys were a minute ago, right here where we're kind of aiming at, I think I threw a grenade in a mo. But yeah, that nest there, it's not a big threat. I mean, yeah, it faces towards B, but it doesn't really do anything. I mean, you know, if there's people trying to disarm or arm B, that position can't really cover it, whereas the A position right here, we know that it can cover it. And you can see that these guys are flanking in. By the way, I know that yeah, I know that I should be slightly bursting a little bit less than I am. I tend to hold fire a little bit at the moment. I've been... the few videos that I had the other day where people were talking about this, where I was sort of holding generally a larger sort of burst amount, going at like 8-9 rounds or more. I am kind of aware of it, and I'm trying to sort of control it slightly better, but it's all, as I say, this was the first time I picked the game up in, you know, 2 weeks probably, having been away for Christmas, and trying to get your head straight, get used to things again is often, you know, that it's surprising when you're in a game and you only need a short time away and you forget quite a lot of things. It's very easy. I know that happens with work as well. When I'm using like work programs, you know, you walk away from something for like, I don't know, a week, and you come back and you forget little shortcuts and hotkeys and things like that. Now again, I moved away there because there was at least sort of 3 or 4 guys. I could see there was 2 in front of me, 2 to the side. So I made my team kind of aware that these guys were in this area, but I didn't really want to engage them. I was out in the open, so I wanted to kind of pull back and try and hold that line there. Now I was trying to get a quick revive on the move there on that guy. It's a bit of a dangerous thing to do, but he survived it, I think. We know it's always a bad thing to do, but I sort of didn't want to be poking my head around this corner, try and engage and sort of lose the revive on that guy. So I thought at that point I made a call. It was worth trying to pick him up there. I thought he was in a kind of safe-ish enough position, but it worked out okay. Now you can see that they've pushed in really hard here on A, they've cleared everyone out, and that's due to them flanking. They've flanked down around the right hand side and the back, they came at us from there, and our guys, including myself, didn't really react quickly enough to kind of fully control that. But look at B. There's no one at B, and this was what I was saying earlier. It's so bad. You can't do that. You can't just abandon an mcom because another one is armed. It's important that we control A. Of course it's important that we control A and we try and defend it as much as we possibly can, but it's important that we keep B secure. And there's 2-3 guys coming up here right now. They very easily could have taken that down. So it's something to keep in mind, and you need to really be aware of what the rest of your team are doing. It's why I moved back to B, because I said who is at B. It was clear that nobody was there, so you know, we really needed to take control of the situation. Luckily I had a squad that was quite aware, and they were, you know, they were responsive to the kind of things we were talking about in game. So we have moved back here and we're putting the pressure. But again, look how bunched up these guys are. We've got like 5 or 6 guys all just standing on top of each other here. And that's why I'm moving away. Because we, you know, right here, look, see? They're moving around. And this is what I was trying to come over for. I said, guys, they're still going to be in the A area. We need to try and control and clear this marketplace. Which is obviously what I'm trying to do here. A big mistake that people make when they're defending on rush is that when the first base goes, look at the map right here, very important to look at this mini map all the time. A big mistake, one of the most categorical mistakes that people make, is the first base goes down, so the A has gone, and then people hug the B base really tightly, okay? They hold this second base, or whichever one you have left, alright? They hold it so tight that it's very easy for the attackers to quickly surround that base and then destroy it. And I keep saying this regularly, but people still are having problems, you know, understanding it. You can't just sit on an mcom once the other one has gone down, because the only thing that will probably happen in that situation is that the enemy will surround you and then kill everyone, alright? So you need to try and cover multiple positions, and you need to try and move where necessary. And look, you see, and this is the point that I'm making, even with our whole team here, look, they still managed to get the plant. Even though we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys right on this mcom, they still got it planted. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying if you hold something too tight, you're going to really lose it. And that's what was happening here. We have too many guys too tight, and it means that, you know, the tighter you are onto the mcom, the less you can really see of where the enemy are coming from, where they're moving around you. So you need to try and spread that net a little bit wider. It doesn't mean that you want to go too far out, but it does mean that you need to try and stay in control. So that was this round, guys. I think it was a good one to show, and I've got a little bit of a video coming up next as well. I've got a tactical breakdown showing some of the movements around this map, and if you want to stay for it, that's really good. It's quite a bit longer, okay, so it's another kind of 20 minutes, so you might want to come and look at it. But it's basically an overview, a tactical breakdown of the different moves you can make as an attacking and defending force. I've done it on a couple of other videos before, and if you like this kind of tactical stuff, I hope that you would enjoy that. Look forward to hearing your comments on this one, guys, and as I say, we'll go into the next part of the video. Thanks for watching. Okay, but that's not where today's video is going to end, because we're going to take a little overview look at Talah on this first base. Now, I've kind of done these with videos before, but we're going to have another little look again. We're just going to think about positions, movement, and how it can kind of go down on these maps. And if there's any particular maps you would like me to do this, if you want to do overviews of Rush, or potentially, I definitely do want to do some Conquest. I have done that before. It may be a bit specific to console, but anyway, let's look at this one for today. So we've got our main positions. Now the defenders are generally going to want to hold up in kind of a couple of main, you know, points on the map, and they're going to want to move forward to here to begin with. They're also going to want to come around here and cover this position, and then they're going to want to move into A. Now A, because of its open area and the fact that you can get, you know, shot down into from several positions over from the attacker's side, A is a bit more tricky, because it's quite an open area. And what you're going to want to move up to here, have a couple of guys up on the roof here, 1, 2 guys up on the roof here, and then you're going to want to have a couple of forward positions, perhaps here and here. But we also need to be aware that on this right hand side, we'll look at that in a mo, so you need to have that kind of generally covered. You don't want to go too far forward. Now, from the attacker's point of view, they're going to have problems like our team had problems. Now, there's a huge temptation, and you see this in a lot of games. We saw it in this game, that what will happen is along this kind of balcony right here, we'll have a couple of people. Often they'll position themselves, and they'll start shooting towards B like this. Okay, we'll also then tend to have up on this balcony here a couple of guys, and they will start shooting down into A. Now, that can actually be a good thing to do, but only if they've actually moved forward and planted to A. Now, what tends to happen a lot is that, as I say, the attackers sort of hold this line, because there's a lot of targets for them to see, okay? They often will see a lot of guys kind of in this B area around these buildings, up over here, and again, the A guys, they'll see a lot of defenders in and around this area just moving backwards and forwards. Now, that can be a very tempting thing, because these guys over here, the attackers, they're like, whoa, we've got lots of little guys we can shoot down onto. The unfortunate thing is that, you know, the defenders have, you know, we know they have infinite tickets. So it's great that they're putting fire down into the bases here, but it doesn't really achieve anything. And the two kind of main options, as we know, are flanking. Now, a straightforward attack, as we saw, can have a moderate effect, but if you have a good defending team that's supporting one another, and what we talk about when we're sort of thinking about supporting one another is, if the defenders, okay, let's say we have a couple of guys move forward, alright, they move up, we've got 2 people here, maybe 1 guy here. Now, let's assume that they get taken out. Now, that's all well and good, and the attackers will start to push forward. But then, if you have a couple of people down here, and perhaps back here, now as soon as those attackers come forward, they're going to encounter these guys. These guys are going to move forward, they're going to create a new line, and this guy's going to come up, he's going to make a new line here. So they have re-supported the guys who already got taken out. So you're basically encountering just a wall of enemies to constantly fire into. Now, as I say, that's all well and good, but it doesn't really achieve anything for the attackers. They're shooting at plenty of targets, but they're not really getting anywhere, and that's pretty much what happened in this round we were playing. They were killing plenty of us. It wasn't really a problem that they weren't getting any kills, they just weren't really achieving anything. They weren't actually moving forward. So let's think about how you might move forward as an attacking team. Now, obviously, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can do a straight full-on out attack, you can flank around, you can create distractions. So let's think about just a straightforward attack. How would you do that, and where would you do it? Well, attacking one base solidly is not always the best thing to do. Now this is going to be slightly dependent on your team, and people say, well, you know, you can't control a public team. This is true, but there are things that you can do that will help. For example, if you're in a squad of your guys, all right, if you've got a preset squad that you're running with, or even if you're just a public player, let's say that you notice a squad of 4 guys or so spreading going towards A from a couple of different positions. Rather than assist them on A, all right, a better plan would be to go, okay, well, we've got a couple of guys going for A, we're going to attack B at the same time. Now this split pressure will help either you or them, and hopefully maybe they'll get a plant on A. At this point it's going to distract the defenders, okay? They're probably going to leave a couple of people, but they're mainly going to move some people in to try and help, you know, diffuse A. And at that point you would hope that this was an opportunity for your guys here and over here to move in and help you take down B, so that you can get B armed and A armed at the same time. Now even then, and then this is where momentum comes in, alright? Momentum is important always in rush, because let's say that the defenders all rushed in onto A and they got that one neutralized, okay, they diffused it, but in doing so they left B weak and we took B out, okay? No, we destroyed B, okay? Now what we're going to want to do then is we have the momentum, the time, okay? They're going to suddenly realize that there's a lot of guys going to be possibly coming this way, they're going to turn around, but we want to use that momentum. I picked up a grey. We want to use that momentum to push in here, and we then want to have our guys re-supporting from here, and then hopefully we can take out A. Now let's clear the board here. But the key importance is to follow it up quickly, because if you've just taken down B, you don't want the defenders to have time to come up here and, you know, sort of start firing into this area here like this, alright? We don't want that to happen. And you also don't want the defenders to kind of get entrenched in this whole market area, because they could very easily take up positions sort of here and here. That's going to allow them to cover this frame doorway here. And we don't always want people here on top of the roof, here, people in here, because they're going to then be able to shoot into multiple different positions and basically create a massive kill zone within this market area. They're going to lock down this market area completely, alright, and you're not going to be able to get in there. And if you leave enough time between taking out one base and going to the next base, that is what's going to happen. So what you're going to want to do as an attacking team is, like I say, you're going to want to use B as a staging point to move quickly in and get to A, and then hope that your guys will support you from here at the same time and just knock that off their feet. And as we say, defenders, what you would want to do is turn that around. Now let's think about what actually happened in the game that we were playing. Now what happened was that, as I say, they took way too long. They sat back here and they fired in, they fired in, they fired in. They didn't really do anything. Then at the last minute, and we had guys, remember, up all over here, they were trying to flank around, remember. Now this is another point to make about flanking. They had guys coming up over here, alright, the attackers, and they were trying to move in around here and then come down into B this way. But we realised this, and we had several, you know, defenders in this area, and they were putting pressure onto here, and they were generally controlling this whole sort of section here. So we had B pretty well locked down. We had a couple of guys, I'm just going to mark these with a few arrows, alright, and we had that locked down, and we had this and this locked down for the most part. So B was fairly secure. But A was not so secure, and you'll notice that several times we didn't really have a lot of people in this area. Okay, we had like 1 or 2 people sort of around the market, but it wasn't really doing very good. You know, we didn't have a lot of control. And the point about the A market area is, again, you can flank just as easily, because what they can do is they can come through here, they can come up here, and then get in round the side. Now that is a bit tricky, because as you would expect, this alleyway here can be a horrible bottleneck, as we saw when I was firing down into there, taking those guys out. But it's the point that you can attack here multiple positions. You can come from 3 different directions, and I think you can actually come around the back here as well. So you can really attack A from a lot of different directions, and it's a lot more of an open base than B is. B is quite tight and locked down, because you really only have this route here, the back route. I don't know why I'm using blue, it should be red. You only have these routes here, and then pretty much on the front. Now they are sort of 3 different directions, but it's all about this area over here, okay? If you can lock down that line, then you're going to be, you know, in control really. So the thing was though that they left it so long to take down A that by the time they'd actually got to a position that they could take it, it was way too late. And then even though they were using A as a staging point to come in onto B, it really didn't do anything because again we could just sit back here and fire back on them, and you know they were just going to get wiped out and they wouldn't have enough people to take it out. So let's clear this again. So what could they have done differently? Well, the thing to do would have been to move much more aggressively and split their force. Again, let's go with our sort of standard B setup. We'll have a couple of guys here, maybe one guy sitting back here. We'll have an A setup, like I said, here, here, and here. So we've got 6 guys there, 7 guys, and maybe a couple of other people sort of mobile moving around. Now, as an attacking force, as I say, what could they do in the game that we played to be more successful? Well, for one thing, they didn't really need anybody here firing across. It doesn't really do anything because the defenders here can very easily get out of the way and they can very easily counter that. It doesn't really do anything. It does help to have someone over here on this position because if you do get A armed, it's very, very useful to be able to cover the A mcom from that position. B, you can't really do that because it's inside the building and it makes it very difficult for anyone over here to realistically defend that from being diffused. If you can drop some smoke here, you can very easily get in and diffuse that. So let's assume that A had been more successful from the beginning, and this could have easily been done. If they had a couple of people, a bit of a force, and they actually sent them from 3 different positions like we said, attacking from here, straight on in, and also from around the side, they would have been able to probably wipe that out. They'd have had a 3-prong attack. These guys in this area would have been able to create a kind of killing zone like this to prevent any defenders coming in, and then the other team here could have, you know, this side team could have worked on actually getting the arm, and then this guy up here, he would have been able to focus on keeping it defended and preventing it from actually being diffused. So let's assume that the team on the A, whilst this was all happening, that's been kind of armed and taken out. Whilst this whole thing was going on over here, what we really would have wanted was a couple of team, and we saw this, they came up and attacked from like this, but at the same time we wanted that flanking team coming around. They could have used smoke more effectively and attacked straight on. They just needed to be more aggressive on B, and even if they were not successful, if they didn't succeed at first, they would have weakened that position so that then the A team, which were more likely to be successful, would have been able to push in harder and take B down, and then the guys over here, let's say these guys got taken out, right, they would have been able to move more quickly to reinforce and get onto B. So that again would have been a more successful, you know, conclusion for A. It was all about basically hitting it a lot harder than they did, and they just sat back way too long. They didn't really do anything. Now that was a split force attack, but let's think about perhaps a more strong approach of hitting one base at a time. Now this is more difficult because, as we saw, what happened at the end, they didn't have enough tickets, but let's say at the beginning, let's say they took out A very, very quickly, alright? So, okay, we're going to use an example here. We'll have a group force, 1 and 2 teams, perhaps of 4 to 5 people, alright? So pretty much most of their team. Let's say they hit A very hard from just 2 positions, alright? They wipe out A almost immediately because we don't even have a chance to set up a defense. But meanwhile, the guys that are trying to defend are sort of around this area here, 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 and sort of up on this road. And we have created a kind of defensive zone that's going to run all the way around B. Now, the attackers, they're going to be on this roof here, and they're generally going to be in this market. And we're probably going to have a bit of an intense firefight that goes between these 2 positions like that. But what they're going to want to do is try and use the momentum that they've had to smash through this line. And they could do that by dropping smoke, throwing grenades, and generally putting a lot of fire from on top of this roof, perhaps with an LMG or sniper, to suppress and eliminate enemy targets in this area, clear that route, so that the rest of the force can then move in and attack that base. At the same time, whilst they were having a firefight here, that's going to create a lot of distraction because defenders are going to come in from this way as well as coming back down into that corridor there, alright? But the attackers could obviously continue to push on from this side, but they could also, let's just take out our initial markers right here. The attackers, obviously, they don't just have to worry about this central area, okay? They could still continue to use the road, so they could break off half their force and move up to support the guys from here. So they can really attack from a couple of different positions, but the key is the speed at which they do it at. Because what they really are going to want to do is As I say, it's all about speed. So really what they want to do is just move in very hard onto A, take that out, then just move straight in onto B, and take a kind of a pincer movement, so that the defenders are trying to attack, defending from a couple of different positions at the same time, but having to deal with the entire enemy force. And if you do it quickly enough, they're not really going to have enough chance to take the correct setup, the correct weapons to do so, and you should be able to knock them off their feet. So that's another way. So they could either try and split their forces and attack in a very kind of flanking way, sort of around both sides at the same time, okay? Take out both bases at the same time and try and distract the enemy enough that they don't know what's happening, or they could send the majority of a force to one base, so maybe sort of send 2/3, okay, to A, and send maybe 1/3 remaining onto B. Now remember, what was happening here was that the 1/3 on this side, they were creating just a distraction on B. Alright, there wasn't really an aim that they were going to get that, they were just creating a distraction, so that the guys on A could effectively clear that out, take it out, and then help support and reinforce the guys onto B. So that would be one thing to do. So let's just So the last thing we really want to think about is, as defenders, what are the key things you really want to be watching for? Well, as we've been talking, we've been thinking about how the attackers can flank and move around. So as defenders, what you really want to watch out for are the key flanking points. And that's going to be the top of this road up here, and this road down here in general, but obviously the different points along it at which those flanking guys can come in from. So you're going to want to position yourselves accordingly. You're going to want to have somebody up here, somebody sort of perhaps in this general area here, the rooftop, maybe on this position here, okay, for the B side. And from there, they're going to be able to cover there, cover into the base here and here, and they're going to be able to stop these guys from getting in. But the key is definitely this side up here, alright, because that is how they will get around you. And you don't really want that to happen, because as soon as they get around you, they'll be able to, shoot in on you. They'll be able to shoot in like this from behind and eliminate all those guys in there, which we don't want to happen. Now over at A, as we've already talked about, it's a little bit more complicated because they can come in from multiple different positions. The rooftop is a good place to hide if you can stay alive up there, but we're also going to want people in the market. And don't think that you need to position yourself so that you can shoot straight on. You don't need to do that. You want to look at who else is around, alright? So I often go down here, you can hide. It allows you to cover positions to your right and to your left, so you can attack two different ways at the same time. I often like to sit in positions where I can cover a lot of different things at the same time. So for example, I might try and position myself somewhere like this so that I can shoot into the left and I can see into the right and perhaps even behind at the same time. So trying to find like key points like this, provided you can find the cover, obviously, can be really helpful. And as defenders, that's something that I always try to do. That's one reason why the rooftop is very good, because you can pivot around very easily. You can see pretty much all different ways into A, and you shouldn't try to be tunnel visioned. That's not a good thing to do. So if you're up on this rooftop, don't just look straight ahead of you, because that's not really what your purpose is. Your purpose is to be up here. You can see what's happening all around you, and that's what you're really going to be wanting to do. So the key for defending on these ones really is to prevent the flanking, and this is pretty much the case on all Battlefield maps. I mean, flanking is never a good thing, but it's more apparent on this map because this map has such close quarters environments, and it's such a fast base to play out that they're either going to come straight on and hit you hard. Now you can deal with that, it's a straight up firefight, but if they decide to go for the flank, it's all about observation. You need to be watching where they're coming from, you need to react quickly and lock them down. So for example, if they come in on the front here, you're obviously going to want to shoot on the front, but if they attack from both ways at the same time, you might not be able to deal with it. So you're going to want to mark those targets that are behind here so that the guys can come in and support from B and help you take them out. So I think this has been a good little overall thing. I hope you've enjoyed this little section of it. Please let me know what you think of it. I've tried to cover a kind of broad range of different situations here, from sort of straight up attacks, momentum attacks, flanking, distractions, how the defenders might have to cope with different situations, and the attackers vice versa. So I'm going to have some more tactical breakdowns on the way for you very soon. This has been a little look at Talah Market. Please again let me know if there's any specific maps you want me to look at or any specific bases. It's better know if we can do one base, because these often can be a little bit talkative. It takes a little time, so if it's one base it's a bit easier for me to break down. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you've enjoyed. As always, please rate and share if you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you for some more Battlefield very soon.